On today's program, I'm making a continuity of our previous discussion, which was about addiction of drugs and how to overcome it. And today I'm hosting Dr. Emily, who is going to diverse about the issue and give us some of the solution on our youths who are so much into drugs. So my name is Jael Musumba. Let's have the discussion. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
How are you?
Jael. Fine, thank you.
You're looking stunning, and thanks for creating time for us.
Thank you. It's my joy to be here.
So
Yes.
kindly introduce yourself. Tell us about your profession. Who are you?
Okay.
Your ministry,
Yes.
and then we will sink into the story.
Okay, my name is Reverend Dr. Emily Obwaka, and I have been in Teen Challenge Kenya, where I'm the executive director for the last 8 years. Before that, my background is in medicine, dental surgery to be specific. I served in the hospital level and worked in 2 hospitals. And after that, felt I wanted to diversify into public health, which I did, and then worked for the Johns Hopkins University, the Center for Communication Programs. So have done a lot of campaigns in reproductive health and other, issues. Before I stepped into Teen Challenge, where I work with people in addiction. Yes.
Of which there is also a story behind it.
Yes, absolutely.
So we like to get that story, like what actually happened.
Yes.
What motivated you to join Teens Challenge? Where did it begin?
Okay, let me say that my background is very far from anything to do with addiction. Having been brought up in a home where, I don't think I know any of my immediate relatives who are in addiction to drugs and alcohol. I married a man who initially was not addicted to alcohol. In fact, he was the most astute and focused doctor, played a lot of football, with Gor Mahia, made a name for himself, was really going places, and I hope he's still going places. But along the path, he started taking alcohol, and his alcohol journey started in university. Before that time, he'd never even tasted alcohol as such. But as a result of a number of tragedies that happened in his family, for instance, losing his mother and his brother within a month of one another, and just feeling very devastated. At the time I was with Hopkins, so I was traveling a lot out of the country. I saw him start to struggle with taking alcohol, probably the sense of loneliness, of grief, not having been, processed. And I saw that he went down the path of really, really depending on alcohol. That was when we had our first two children. We have 4 girls, and the first 2 came along when he was not really deep in alcohol. But our second 2 daughters came when he was really neck deep into the alcohol. And it was painful to watch them, watch their dad, probably break promises. He would say he would be there for their sports day, to meet with their teachers, to go out with them, to do functions for their birthdays. But alcoholism and addiction just causes you to break promises and just not be there for those who are important in your home. So I watched my husband really go down that path, and our children, and especially the last 2, suffered from the brunt of an absent father a lot of the time. That was, I wish I had known to intervene at that point, but at that point, just like somebody going through grief, I really ignored it. It was this big elephant in the room that nobody talked about. Haikuwa inafanyika, like we turned a blind eye to it. And several years later, when it was really deep and there was a lot of pain, there had been a lot of missed opportunities for him, and also brokenness in the home, is when I started realizing, this thing is not going to get well on its own. There has to be an intervention. And especially watching my children, and especially the third born, start to take the same stuff as her father took, in a bid to just follow a parent, the fact that he loved to drink, and it looked like, okay, this is a good path to go. And because it was not being talked about in the home, I guess it was like, okay, wacha nifuate baba. After all, he's my father.
So I'll cut you, Sister,
Yes.
I'll cut you. I'd like to understand, Doctor, being that this situation was going on, it never raised an eyebrow on your side, like you wanted to understand what is exactly happening. Did you ever try to have a sit down with your husband and have a discussion about it?
Absolutely. You know, you try all things. You try every kind of maneuver to try and change someone. Threatening, you know, walking out, saying, you know, let's end this marriage because this thing doesn't seem to be resolving. So been through the journey of separations, but you see, then there's the promise of, okay, things will get better, we're going to resolve, I'll change. And as you go down that path, you realize, actually, this is not changing. So after 2, 3, the families have sat and talked about it. There's been confrontation. There's been, you know, warnings of various kinds. Because you see also, alcoholism takes you down a path where you're always at risk. My husband has had 5 major accidents with big cars, where you have head-ons, where you have the car has rolled and gone, you know, out of the road. But he has come out, yes, but he has come out unscuffed. I mean, that tells me there is purpose for his life. There is something that God is preserving him for. He's had very major medical problems. You know, pancreatitis is one of the things that comes as a result of taking alcohol, abusing alcohol. And he's had like 4 or 5 episodes of those. One can kill someone, but he has had 5 episodes, come out, but gone back the same way. So really, I had tried on my own, whichever way I could do it, and I had left him, I had come back, I had left him. So we've been down that journey. I don't think there's anything we've not done, you know, including deliverance prayers and, you know, laying hands on him and, you know, every maneuver. But you realize that it was like he was hell-bent on going down a path of destroying his body. You know, addiction is like you're imprisoned in your own body. You know, you come to a point where you cannot deviate out of that unless God delivers. Truly, it is a very difficult journey, even for the person in addiction. But more so for the people who watch a situation where you know the potential in this person. My husband was the best obstetrician gynecologist at the end of his training, and went to England to receive awards for his profession, you know, professional accomplishment, but still in the midst and in the depth of alcoholism. So though he's a functional alcoholic.
That's when he was already in alcoholism.
Yes, deep in it, but able to balance working and also drinking, you know. So with all this going on, you know, yes, we did try many ways. Of course, the children were conflicted because they didn't understand, why is mom staying with dad? And we are at a very difficult situation. Yeah. But you know, I'm a great believer in God's instructions and leadings, and I felt there was no way I could leave or walk out of that situation without God's allowance
and
for me to do so.
Vowed for better, for worse.
Exactly, for better, for worse, till death, till death
do us part.
Yes.
So how long did it take, and besides the effects that were going to the children, you personally, did it affect you in any way?
You know, I think initially it probably did in just wrestling even with God and saying, you know, what did I ever do to find myself in this spot, you know? You know, if I may also explain, you see, in faith, we are instructed in the Word of God that we should not be yoked to non-believers. You know, let me say here and now that I was born again before I got to know my husband. He was not born again, but he was super attractive. He was that 6 foot, you know, dark, handsome, you know, achiever. He was going places, you know, it looked like this was, you know, a good choice. Yes, absolutely, happily ever after. But, you know, as when we went into it, things went the way I've described. And my own, I struggled myself. I struggled in rationalizing my faith and until I came to the place where it begins with me. Let me come back to the Lord. Let me follow and do what I know to do. And that meant being a good wife to my husband, regardless of where he was. You know, it meant blessing him and praying for him. It meant being there for my children and not just pursuing the path that would give me the greatest happiness. Because I could have stayed out. I was a professional making good money. I could have lived happily on my own, but I knew that was not what God wanted me to do. So I brought up the children in that difficult situation, and that was not easy. That was not easy. What I can say, Jael, is that this journey of difficulty has grown me in strength, in being able to know myself, who I am in God, and my capability, and especially in relationship to God. I have seen him grow me in my faith. I wouldn't be leading Teen Challenge today if I had not gone through these challenges. And it has not been for 1 year, it has been for 35 plus years. So I'm grateful to God for his preservation, that he uses even difficult situations to shape us into who he wants us to be, to fulfill the purpose for which he has put us here on earth. Yeah.
So take us through your husband's situation. Did you find a solution? Did he change? Or you're still stuck in the same situation?
You know, about 1.5 years ago, I realized that he needed to have space and time to find himself. And I felt very, very endorsed to do this. We came together as a family and we realized we needed to give him space to come to the place where he would make a choice for family or to continue in the path that he had chosen. So he's still working. He works in Thika, in a private hospital. He has his own, facility, and he's in the same situation. But God is able to transform. We never give up hope, especially knowing that God is able to raise from the dead. And we believe as a family that he's able to restore him to better than he was before. But we will do that from the distance God has allowed at this time. Yes.
You had also mentioned about your daughter being that you are still the same situation which is yet to be unsolved, and then you have another one starting.
Yes.
Your daughter's.
Yes.
Where did it begin?
With my daughter, it began when she looked at her father and said, "Wow, you like drinking? I will love drinking more than you do." And although as a mother that broke my heart, I knew that this had been as a result of seeing a pattern of behavior that she couldn't reconcile. As a young person, she thought, okay, there might be something in this drinking. And she's one who has a choleric, sanguine kind of personality. She wants to prove things. She wants to take risks. She wants to do that, And so she began after high school, just to hang out probably with the wrong crowd. Took a gap here, there, and connected with people who took marijuana. And because she's musically gifted, they were spending time in studios, and that becoming, okay, we are taking marijuana, we are developing music, we are doing things, and that became the gateway to getting stuck in that lifestyle of, okay, this is where we are going to be, we're going to enjoy life. She got into a relationship with a much older man who was able to provide for what she needed, in terms of the money to do the drugs. And for a long time, she was in that lifestyle. I, in my naivety, thought that she'll come to her senses and, okay, this gap year is over. Wacha tuendelee na shule. But it looked like, no, she sort of was entrapped in that cycle of addiction to the place where I realized we needed to get her into a rehab. So looked for a rehab, and Jael, you'll not believe that in this country at that time there was no rehab for women. So looked at it and said, okay, where do we go? So I checked her into...
Literally?
Yes, there was no rehab I could find that had only women. So I checked her into a rehab that had 25 men na huyu ni msichana wangu peke yake hapo ndani, you know, it's good she's a very strong person. She has a strong personality, strong-willed, and she is able to defend her own, and they assured me that they had safety around her being in that rehab. She came out 3 months later, and they did,
Doctor, let me cut you short. What actually attracted you to feel like I need to take my daughter to a rehab? Were there signs that really triggered you that it's high time I take her? You know,
at that time, I thought, first of all, addiction was like you can't help yourself. You're trapped in a thing, in a place where you have to be almost confronted, like lazima tukulazimishe uingie. And actually, that's how we took it. When I first took her to a rehab, she didn't even know her suitcase was in the back of the car. So we took her there, tunaongea na counselor, alafu na disappear kiasi, and I left her suitcase there. She had to be put in a strong room to cool down because she realized now, mom has played me here. And so initially I thought, okay, this is a disease. This is something one can't help themselves. You have to almost force them out of a situation,
for them to come
to their senses. So 3 months later, she looked very good, but you can't imagine, within a month, alikuwa amerudi hiyo lifestyle. And that took many rehabs, as in like about 5 or 6 rehabs, some going twice, you know, tunaenda. And by then, halfway through that journey, I have started working for Teen Challenge. I began the Women's Center. You know, Teen Challenge was already there, but I began the Women's Center. So I would tell her, why don't you come, you know, to Teen Challenge, you know. But Mimdio, her direct overseer, she was not going to agree to that. And she eventually...
And then she wouldn't conform, being that you are the mom.
Exactly. So utakuwa mama na utakuwa, you know. So she really refused that story. Eventually, when I became the leader of Teen Challenge, so I was not directly in charge of the Women's Center, she actually came into the center. About 5 years, actually 7 years. She had been in addiction 7 years. Yes, 7 good years. And at one point, I thought I was going to lose my daughter.
What happened?
Coming home from work one day, I was coming at about 8 o'clock. My headlight iliangukia mwanamke fulani amekaa kando ya njia. Looked like an old woman. I was just about to pass when I realized it was my own daughter. I got home, I wept like I've never wept before. I called my prayer partner, we prayed and believed for God's turnaround in her life. That is when she agreed to come to Teen Challenge. And she came to Teen Challenge, she finished that 1 year, and you know, really it looked like she had turned around forever. I mean,
and at that moment, was her father around? Did he feel anything like I need to change? Probably could be the problem affecting my daughter. He
was still continuing in his lifestyle without batting an eye, an eye. He continued in that lifestyle. He was continuing and was not even confronting him. He said, no, everyone has their own lifestyle. You know, wanajichagulia. So it's not on me. So there we were. She went to Teen Challenge. She did very well. And she finished, and immediately, I mean, I thought after that, you know, we are done. We are completely done with this lifestyle. So for 4 years,
story.
Yeah, for 4 years she continued well. But at some point, you see, because addiction is a choice that doesn't begin with that bottle. It begins with a lifestyle where you replace Christ in the life. So that when you choose to do anything else, and so it's not just drugs and alcohol. Yake ilianza trigger kubwa ilikuwa social media. She started doing a business. Yes, social media is one of the ones that has the greatest potential to take one on a path that displaces the place of God in one.
It's really affecting you.
It is. That's a major one. She started her own business, selling clothes, designing clothes, selling them through social media. She was very successful. So hiyo ni pesa inaingia, na ina kazi vile. She's really famous on social media. She has a following of over 75,000. I mean, she really was doing well. But you see, that's where, you know, the lie comes. So you start living a life that's not yours. You start living to please others. You're out of your regular things.
I know the pressure.
Yes. and she found herself in a place of difficulty, you know, and especially when you start, you want affirmation, you know, you know, there's a lot of competition. Actually, social media is not for the weak-hearted or the weak-willed. It is really a place of great temptation. So akajikuta ako chini tena, and this time it was alcohol, not even marijuana.
That's now the second time.
This is the second time.
After rehab?
After rehab, after 4 years staying well. And even at some point coming into Bible school. So she had started Bible school, and she was a top student, working well, akajikuta ako chini tena, you know. And this time I realized many times before we had been the ones who would pull her out of situations. And this time we decided, you know what, we are not going to pull her out.
Let her realize
Let
herself.
her realize for herself. And you know, it happened because although we knew where she was, her sisters would go have a meal with her, like
she
pizza.
had left home.
She had left home. She was, you know, living where she was living, you know.
Pesa iko.
Pesa iko. No, like, but that time alikuwa chini kabisa. You know, these things just drain you.
Stop selling clothes.
Yeah. Stop selling clothes. Everything was not going well. So to a place where you come to a place you have nothing, but her sisters reached out to her. I reached out to her. And just those love acts, and you know, I will talk about love is what recovers someone in addiction. Love never fails. And so when we reached out to her, suddenly at some point she said, I need out. This is not my lifestyle. This is not who God made me to be. And you know, that's when she came home, and that's how she recovered. She started the journey. She went back to Teen Challenge for a month, and then God helped her just to walk right.
Oh, you took her back?
I took her back. She also realized she needed to go back. Because ile initial, kama uko in addiction, you need time away from the triggers, from the things that keep you on that spiral of defeat. And you need to be in a seclusion. You need to be in that place. So she came away, and then she came to live with me. And she's doing absolutely well. Yeah.
So right now she's a year plus fresh.
She's a year plus. She stayed just a month and a bit in the rehab this time because it was a refresher. Na ako sawa tu. Ako sawa sababu she has got her pillars right. And the pillars are intimacy with God, a functional home, a community that helps her walk well, so that she remains accountable and she's conscious of the things that took her down the other time. With social media, she has a constraint for herself. So she only goes on social media for 2 hours a day. And that's usually to post the things that she's learning from the Bible.
Doctor, having been into these two situations, and I understand right now you are the right person who can talk to family members and also youths. Number one, what are the common triggers that mostly influence youths to indulge in alcohol?
Okay, I think the first one is just a loss of sense of community. When a young person doesn't have the connection with parents, so is not nurtured well to grow, to understand values and to live by those values, they start to grope, and especially with social media, in creating values that do not serve their lives well, where they are not helped to understand purpose. You know, you have a goal in life. Where are you going? How do you need to carry yourself to eventually come to that purpose? How do you need to say no, you know, and not apologize, you know, so that you're not driven by peer pressure and what others are doing? You know, what affirms you? What keeps you feeling you're celebrated even when everyone else is doing the wrong things? How do you feel you're well, you're okay? You know, because it's that wellness in the soul, in your emotion, in your will, in, you know, that will keep you in the place where you're steadied, you know. Young people need to be helped to know how to deal with stress, because stress is part of life, you know. And if parents don't invest in helping them grow strong in identity, grow strong in conflict, how to address conflict, grow strong in how to work with community. So how do I make sure that I'm not the center of life, you know? Because the moment I'm not other-minded, I'll be, it's ni mimi na ni mimi na ni mimi. Nisipopata vile nataka, kitu nataka, saa hii, njia hii, you know, I throw my hands up in the air and I throw a tantrum, you know, that baby kind of, you know, that behavior can cost a young person going through life to eventually just reach out to alcohol and drugs, because it's about filling a gap in their soul.
Apart from what you've mentioned, what can a parent do, having that now the situation is out of hand, it's out of making a roundtable conversation, the youth is already addicted.
Yeah.
What are the possible way can this youth be saved?
Okay. The first one is, for the parents, you need to understand you didn't cause it, you can't control it, and you cannot cure it. That will help our parents now be able to reach out in the way they can. Okay, they didn't cause it, they can't control it, they can't cure it. Second thing is, they need to confront lovingly. You see, the worst thing about many parents is that they have an idea of this little Tom who never touched alcohol and who cannot possibly, ni wenzake wamemharibu, yeye ni sawa tu, hana shida hata, you know, hawezi. So parents need to come to the place of lovingly confronting their young people, not in an accusation, but in a way of, tuko pamoja, wacha nikusaidie. The third thing is that they need to point them to where they can get help. And, you know, because addiction is a journey which begins with experimentation. And young people are usually in the experimentation stage where they are trying something that, yeah, hii inanisaidia. At least napata nakuwa accepted, shida yangu inakuwa alleviated. That's the first stage. Socialization is the second stage. Ameanza kufanya kiasi, he arranges to go places, he has boundaries, lakini akiendelea na hiyo, it comes now to the preoccupation. Mahali, anachagua kuenda mahali, ama party, ama whatever, where he will get this drug, and eventually to full-blown addiction. Usually young people are in the first two stages, experimentation or the social stage. So at that stage, if they get somebody who can work with him in counseling, anaweza kusaidika, visit places like Teen Challenge and see that these people usually start at a teenage age and then eventually become addicts. And nobody ever woke up and said, I want to be an addict. None of those who are in that place walijitakia kuwa mahali wako.
It is a process.
So it is a process. And if a young person can understand at that stage that I don't need to do this, and this will jeopardize my future. So many of the people who are in addiction in the home that we run, Teen Challenge, started actually at the teenage. They started when they're 13, 14, 15, you know, high school. And they need to understand when parents are trying to tell the young people how to stay out of it, they need to understand that those who are in full-blown addiction started about their age. And and I was also saying that the parents themselves need to model a life of sobriety, a life of love towards their children, being there for them.
Sure.
Yes.
So thanks so much, Daktari. I think you said it all.
Yes.
And for my viewers, I believe they pick a lot from your discussion. So I so much appreciate.
You're most welcome.
And to my good viewers, this marks the end of today's conversation. If you have any pressing issue or an idea to share, feel free to drop a comment. Till next time, I'm your host, Jaun Sumba.